Hello, good morning. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being there on this Friday morning, very close to the start of summer. My name is Cornelia Kish from Culture Action Europe. Uh, we are leading the Culture and Health Platform together with my dear colleague Mari Wittig, who is here as well, and will be taking care of the technical part and also the background of briefing all the speakers and so on. I'm going to tell you a little bit about why we are here. It will be very fast, about, what the Culture and Health Platform is. And thereafter, we will be introducing to the two distinguished artists here, KIM DOHERTY and SAARAMAIJA ZORAWSKI, who will share their practices with you. The idea of the Artists Roundtable is really imagining that we are next to a coffee and we talk to each other in a coffee place, how one artist would share their experiences with the other one. So it should be very informal. So the more people put on their cameras, the better, because we are in a cafe. So let's also see each other if it's possible, if you have the possibility. So I'm going to share my slides now to really tell you about the artist roundtables. So this roundtable is the fourth roundtable, and this time it will be on mixed art forms. So no specific, sorry, no. So there will be a mixed way of working with people in the area of culture, health, and well-being. We will first tell you about the Culture and Health Platform, and then, as I mentioned earlier, two experienced artists will share their practices, and thereafter we will go to breakout rooms if there are enough people, or we stay in this plenary session and discuss basically your experiences, and we introduce each other, including you as well. So I just wanted to tell you that the Culture and Health Platforms comes from the Culture for Health project, which was an EU preparatory action. And it's very good to scan the QR code if you don't know yet the Culture for Health report, because it gives a lot of help, we believe, also for artists working in this field. The first part of the Culture for Health report deals with evidence on how culture contributes to health and well-being, followed by a set of policy recommendations for both EU level and member states. And also we have highlighted 8 challenges that politicians face. And there you can find a lot of argumentation of why it is worthwhile to help with cultural activities, issues like, for example, aging of the population or mental health crisis. The Culture for Health report has these recommendations, and we have seen that some of the recommendations can be partly answered through the setting up of a platform. We saw that there needs to be capacity building, artists need to be connected and learn from each other, because we don't want every artist to reinvent the wheel. It's so much better if we learn from each other and then implement the practices as you would like to have, but it's still but it's still worthwhile to see what the others do. Another thing that the Culture for Health project collected is it's a database of more than 800 projects in this field, which is constantly being fed by new projects. So feel free to submit your projects as well there. But it's very good because it's searchable by art area, by target group, or also even free text. So for example, if you want to do a project in loneliness, tackling loneliness, you just put in loneliness and then you get all the projects that we know about in the EU. We continue to feed this database. This is not a closed database, so please do share your projects. And I think next time we will also add a QR code to that, that part as well. So going back again to the recommendations, the Culture and Health platform aims to answer to some of these recommendations. And I also want to mention that there is a care project in parallel ongoing, which is more about implementation and scaling up some initiatives that happened in one country, and we are testing it in another country. The good thing about the Culture and Health platform is that it is for 4 years. This Artist Roundtable is one of those elements that enable networking between each other and also sharing of best practices and peer learning from each other. We also have, for example, capacity building as well. I wanted to show you the members of the platform here. As you can see, it's quite widespread, and every year we are adding one more member. But it doesn't mean that if you're coming from countries which are not, let's say, colored in this map, you cannot engage with the platform, because most of our trainings, most of our peer learning activities are free of charge and online. So actually, absolutely possible to join from everywhere. So these are the actions that the platform is doing in the next 4 years. One of them is financial support for projects through national calls, so in the countries that were marked with red, but we will also have EU level calls starting from 2026 February on. Where actually we are financing projects of artists, not organizations, but artists or artist collectives. We also support and build the capacities of artists in this area through online trainings and live trainings. And the online trainings, again, are free of charge and for everyone, is open for everyone to join. We also have shadowing and peer learning program where artists go to another country. We just finished one in Holland where 5 artists went and looked how in the field of elderly care, art can contribute to better health and well-being of the artist. We also support the mobility across borders. The organizations that are the platform members are mentoring the artists. And we also really want to make sure that we increase the visibility of the field and showcase the work of these artists. And we are very happy to have SAARAMAIJA ZORAWSKI here, because actually she is one of the selected artists in Finland. And one of the ways to increase her work visibility is this Artists Roundtable, but also we really want to make sure that we raise awareness of the health and the social sectors of the benefits of cultural activities for their sectors as well. So therefore, we will have webinars for these sectors, actually raising their awareness and also raising the demand basically for this field. And we also do cross-border networking, and this is where the Artist Roundtable is coming in. As you see, this is the 4th Artist Roundtables that we have, and this time it's on cross art forms. So without further ado, I would like to give over to SAARAMAIJA ZORAWSKI, who is already almost ready for holidays, but this is her last presentation. So I'm stopping to share my slides, and Marie, if you can share her slides when she needs. Thank you.
Yeah, hello, I'm ready. Yeah, so hello everybody. It's very lovely to be here. My name is SAARAMAIJA ZORAWSKI, and I've had the chance to work in this Culture and Health Platform project with the support of a grant, and I'm really happy to share a bit about my work with you today. I'll be sharing an view of my work with the focus on the method that I have developed. And this method is called ääneen laulettu. sung out loud in English. I am a musician and a facilitator working at the intersection of culture and health, and my work centers on encountering people through music and art-based methods. Next slide, please. At the moment, I work with elderly people in long-term care homes and with young cancer patients. And my own experience of cancer as a young mother deepened my passion for community-based work and sparked my interest in communication through art. I truly believe that music, especially when made in community, can offer connection, mirrors for identity, space for grief and other emotions, and many times unexpected joy. And next slide, please. This title, Sung Out Loud, is a translation of the Finnish name Äänenlaulettu, which means both singing aloud and bringing something into shared space through music. This method is about co-creation, and it's deeply rooted in presence and relationship. The relationship between me and the participants, between me and myself, and also between the participants with themselves. We don't just write songs about the past or identity, but we meet in the present moment through making art. The process is very intuitive, and anything can really become the seed of a song, a sound, silence, a memory, or image. So this method has two parts. The first part is facilitating creative exercises that support relaxation, connection, and awareness. And we gather the songwriting material at the same time. Then the second part is writing a song to reflect the shared experience. And I work with both individuals and groups, and the sessions last about 2 hours. I plan them in advance, but I choose the exercises intuitively based on groups' energy and needs. Then afterwards, I compose the song from the material that we have created together, and then I return to the group, usually in a week or so, and I come with a live version of the song or a demo recording of it, and sometimes the participants join me within the song, or sometimes they just listen. And these songs are not polished products, but reflections of connection. And oftentimes participants tell me that both the session and the song gave them a sense of being truly seen and heard.
Yes.
Yeah. Next slide, please. Oh, something happened there in the slide. But I listed some of the artistic tools I use within this method. To my knowledge, in Finland, most artists working in the arts and health field come from visual arts or theater or dance backgrounds rather than music. But since I'm a musician, I use a lot of music-based exercises, but I blend different art forms in my sessions. Creative writing is one very common thing that I do, stream of consciousness writing with music playing in the background. I combine it with different, let's say, prompts, like we start all the sentences with "I remember," and then we write until the song is finished, and then we talk about it. Guided listening. It's just a gentle, mindful way to listen music. It's a support for presence and reflection. And also a starting point for a conversation. And yeah, all these exercises are many times starting points for sharing and conversation. We do moving with or responding to music through the body, individually or as a group, and simple body percussion and rhythmic play to help connection. I do creative exercises to open imagination, including vocal improvisation, or any kinds of playful activities with objects and toys even. Visual art, we might be doing drawing or painting in response to music or music playing in the background. I might be using images or art as a starting point. Yeah, guided imagery exercises paired with sound, and we also build immersive sound environments together with musical instruments or our voices or objects or whatever. And all these exercises, they flow naturally from one to another. So we often start with movement and then move into writing, into drawing, into listening, and then into sharing. It can be anything that helps creativity and opens up connection. Next slide, please. So I picked two stories from my work that I wanted to share with you. The first one is from a cancer patients group. In one session, a participant brought in a melody that their grandmother used to hum, and we all hum it together, and it was a great moment. And after the session, I wove this melody into a song about resilience. And the participant later shared that playing the song to their close ones helped them to talk about their diagnosis and the feelings related to it. So this is an example where communication happened through the art making and also like through the session and also with the song created. The song sort of became a messenger for this participant. The other example is from a care home. I once visited a resident who had memory loss and they didn't speak anymore, but instead they made these melodic sounds and experimental noises and screaming even. And I tried familiar songs, hoping for recognition and connection, but nothing really seemed to reach them. So I let go of trying to do it right, and I started to improvise with the resident, and we stayed in that musical space, just making sounds together, and I could feel the connection build. And after some time, I stopped, and so did they. And there was a moment of silence. And after that, they began to sing loud and clear the very first song I had tried at the beginning of the session. So this was an example where the encounter really happened through music. And after some time, this resident went to a hairdresser, and I heard that they kept singing the song still at the hairdresser. So yeah, it really touched them and me as well. Next slide, please. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this process that I'm going to do this fall. So I have this sung out loud method that I will turn into a group practice. I'll run a 9-session pilot at the Helsinki hospital at their cancer center with their hospital's occupational therapist, Anna-Elina Rahikainen. There will be 9 sessions, and the first 3 is about group building, safety, presence, getting to know each other, and getting familiar with this method. Then the next 3 is going to be more about gathering material, improvising, doing the exercises. And then the last 3 is shaping the songs and reflecting and sharing on the songs. And in between these sessions, these participants get optional homework assignments to support their own art making and own process. And they are welcome to share their products in these sessions as well. And the final session will be a small performance or exhibition where I will present these songs either alone or with the group if possible. And the participants can invite their loved ones to this last session to listen and share this. And they can also share the outcomes they've made. The participation is very flexible. It can mean listening or creating or reflecting or just simply being present. It's completely what the participants want and need. And next slide, please. So now we come to this conclusion. What matters in arts and health work. Deep listening is very important. You always begin where the participants are, where their energy and interests and needs are. But at the same time, it's also very important to listen inward and stay grounded in your own artistic identity and joy. Because I feel if I lose that, then I lose the connection to the people who I work with. So that's a very key. Stay humble, curious, and involved. I think this work always happens in this liminal space. It's between me and the group, between structures and spontaneity, and leadership and vulnerability. So it requires deep listening and reacting to lots of situations towards the participants, but also to yourself. Trust the process. Meaningful connection always builds over time, and longer term work in one place deepens trust and the impact. So it's good to have these longer term contracts in one unit if possible. This is important. I think art is already there. I don't believe that I'm bringing art into a space where it doesn't already exist. In fact, sometimes I feel that healthcare settings hold even more potential for art than our everyday environments. People often say that, oh, your work is so important, but I do feel deeply privileged to do this work because the creative insight and inspiration that I gain through these encounters is profound. And what holding space looks like for me, probably many things, but what I listed here is asking help when needed for myself and for the participants, sticking to the art because that's my expertise, then good facilitating skills like being clear on ethics, structure, and boundaries, and very important one, making room for the unknown, because that's my expertise as an artist. And next slide, that's the last one. What I have learned during my experience is that it's very important to take care of yourself. You need to be very well to offer something meaningful to others. Job counseling has been really helpful for me, and peer support because this is a new field of work. It's important to build community around what you do. Participants always come first. It's important to adapt your plans based on their well-being and needs. And I noticed that that's also the most interesting part for me, to adapt rather than bringing ready ideas. Don't over-prepare. Let the artistic process be present. Too much planning will block presence and creativity. And always collaborate with the staff in the unit because their involvement helps the work to take root, and it helps it to last longer in the unit, and it makes you feel safer when you're on the same page with the staff. And healthcare often has strong hierarchies, so leadership support is very crucial in that too. Um, yeah, this work is all about connection through art, not fixing or curing. I probably said that already many times, but yeah. And not everyone will connect with your work, and that's okay. It's art after all, and art is always deeply personal. It moves people differently, and people readiness varies. So it's good to respect that. And your role is not to impress or entertain, but to hold space. So that's how I think it differs from kind of like typical artistic work outside of these settings. Um, and sometimes the impact of your work shows later or quietly. So you never know. Sometimes the reaction is immediate, but many times not. And accepting all this frees you to work authentically, and it allows honest participation, which is vital in trauma sensitive and care environments. Um, One last bit is that I think intention really matters because this work is often viewed as doing something good, but doing good alone is probably not a healthy intention. So it's important to stay present, curious, and focus, offering something true and open, and not fixing and saving, because that's when real connection happens. Yeah, that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Saramaia. It was really, really inspiring. And some of the things you said are really resonate with me. I wonder if some of the participants would like to ask some questions to Saramaia, or maybe Kim, if you have some questions. I saw you nodding a lot of times, or reflections, maybe not questions.
Yeah, I would resonate very strongly with what Sarah Maya shared. The deep listening and the holding space, and really that the participants lead, and that the art is already there. I think that's a lovely way of putting it. And you're sort of like the instrument that helps bring that out. Yeah, so I resonated a lot with everything that you shared, Sarah Maya,
Mhm.
and how you described it. I felt how you reflected on each part and described it is really helpful. Um, yeah.
When you say art is not already there, you mean more also like that it's in the people already, or
That was what I heard, but
Yeah, because those spaces, I think they have a lot of silence and room for the art. So it's in the stuff, it's in the residents, it's in the air. It kind of has the space for it. Whether like in our world, there's so much of it already, and there's so many structures and so much entertainment and lots of noise. But there's a lot of space for it, I feel.
and then the way you, for example, connected just some a bit more boring practical questions. You
Mhm.
connected this hospital. I see that you have in the implementation of the Culture and Health Platform project, you work with an occupational therapist within the hospital.
Yes.
So you would propose to go that way to like building these connections. If someone, for example, would just like to get into such a space, how would you go about it, or how did you meet this person, and so on?
Well, I met this person through my own cancer group many, many years ago, and I haven't been in contact for maybe 7 years. And now, when this project came to my mind, I found that she's now actually working at the hospital, and that's how I got the connection. But like in these long-term care homes, there in Finland, at least, there's usually always somebody who is responsible of the cultural events. It can be playing bingo, but some kind of like organizer for the events. So, for example, that person could be because the nurses are too busy for that. But it's important that you find somebody who is interested in your work in the unit, because otherwise you're just a visitor, and it's like another entertainment. There's TV on, there's radio, and then there's you, and it's kind of the same thing.
And yeah, so you said not everybody is engaging. You say not everybody is engaging. So how do you deal with that, for example, in a group setting?
Well, that changes. I do a lot of individual sessions as well, but in a group setting, I try to prepare as much as I can. I ask the staff about the people who are participating, like how they are and how they usually react. And I ask for help in that sense too, to know. And I also ask the staff to be present because I need their expertise. Um, but yeah, if there's a group setting and we do an exercise and somebody doesn't like, it looks that they are not really responding, I usually let it be like that. I let them be like they are because I don't know what happens inside of them. It might be that next time when I go there, the nurse comes to me and says that, yeah, this participant was really more alive after the session, even though it didn't show up in the session. So, because I cannot take care of everybody during the session as well, I offer something, and then I have some tools um, to get those people to participate. But sometimes, and actually many times, it might not happen the way I expected it to happen, and that's completely fine.
And you mentioned that you use creative writing. Can you give an example of, for example, how you do that, or what are some of those?
Yeah, it could be that we do a movement exercise. We listen to our body and uh, listen to we do it individually or in pairs. And then, then I would say, like, let's write what the body wants to say to you, or let's write a letter to our body, or um, we listen to a piece of music and kind of write so that the music is accompanying the writing. So we're not really thinking, but just let the pen flow on the paper. And that's the stream of consciousness writing.
And how do you decide when you get into the room of like whether you do the body version versus the other?
I just work really intuitively. So I just look at the participants and what comes to my mind, like what could fit with these people.
And did you have a place where you learned all these techniques, for example, or how do you?
Well, I've been always really interested in self-development and different kind of courses, and I've been doing that for the past 20 years. So I have like lots of tools from different kind of workshops that I've been.
Great, thank you so much. So I'd like to ask again the participants if anybody would like to ask Saramaija at this point something.
Please ask something.
Well, in that thing, I think we will go further to KIM
Yeah.
DOHERTY from Ireland now, and then we will see maybe some people get some ideas, and let's see how your cross art form, Kim, inspires everyone.
Okay, so uh, bear with me now, and I'll bring it into slideshow. Stop sharing just for a second. Okay, is that working okay?
Yes, but you turned off your camera.
Bear with me now. There we go. Okay, so apologies for that little glitch. So when I was asked to come and share with you this morning, I felt like one of the big parts of my practice is reflective practice. And I had to think about, and even in terms of the projects that I'm working on at the moment. So the one that's literally on my mind a lot at the moment is working with people in a cancer care setting, and they are thinking about legacy in terms of what they leave behind. And they're thinking about their life story and maybe things that they enjoyed, and sort of thinking about who am I think is probably the simplest way to put it. So, in relation to this presentation, that led me to think about who am I? Was I always an artist, or where did I come from in relation to the arts? So, at the moment, in terms of this project, I'm from the Cavan Monaghan Arts and Health Forum. Um, but I'm also an artist and I'm also an art therapist. And I always considered myself an artist. Even as a child, I loved the arts, and that was where I found my space. And then I thought about how did I come into the arts? So, in terms of going to art college, I thought, would I like to be a filmmaker or would I like to be a visual artist? And so for the portfolio, I got to explore all of those things. And then I chose to go into a broad course that was about visual art in general. And the reason I mention that is because while I loved clay and ceramics, and while I loved photography, I knew I wasn't going to be a graphic designer because that was one of the elements. And as you can see already, I'm not, I have my technical difficulties at times. So I knew I need to be in the arts. Um, but a community art elective had a big influence on me there. So I really enjoyed working with other people. So even when I finished that course, I ended up teaching art and being in the education space. But what I felt when I was there was that for me, there wasn't enough in the curriculum based on the people I was working with. I felt they need something from an emotional point of view or from a well-being point of view. And that sowed the seed for when I would go down the path of becoming an art therapist. So I did go into that whole area of being an artist and an artist facilitator. Um, but the people were always to the forefront. So I worked in the arts office in Cavan County Council in a youth arts project. And at the time, I was training to be an art therapist, and I was really lucky. And we are really lucky in Cavan and in Ireland, in that we have really good champions and really good supporters. And we had noticed that arts and health in general, there was a lot of good work happening in the community, but we needed to come together and have some shape or structure. So, with the arts officer at the time, Katrina O'Reilly, we brought stakeholders together, and that became the start of the Cavan Monaghan Arts and Health Forum. And recently, myself and Alicia presented at a national level in relation to arts and health. Now, I won't go into the arts and health platform because I think it's probably not appropriate today, but I'll keep going. This is one of your, I think, founding stones of the Culture and Health Project. And I found this really helpful today when I was thinking about my practice, because it speaks to how I work in general. So, like the emotional area, the emotional competencies that an artist needs to work in a space with other people, because we all enter the room and we all come with all of those experiences, our whole life journey enters the space. And then us, the person, begins to engage with the artist and the art materials. And I think SAARAMAIJA mentioned the holding space. So there are many tools that we need to embody to be able to, I feel, work competently within the space. The reflective practice is one of the big ones for me. And obviously our own artist identity and our own creative competence is something that we need to be engaging with, even if it's just privately. Like, one of my things is I don't always share what I make, because if I'm making something that's just for me, then I know that's just for me. It's not for audience consumption. Um, and that was a really big learning during when I was training to be an art therapist, because I had to think about, when I started that journey, when you're making art, there's the art that you make for the aesthetic, for the beauty's sake, so as to how beautiful it is. But then there's the art that you make that's more to do with the process and how you're engaging with the materials. So I felt that how I make art and how I experience art did definitely change in just through the process that we went through, even in those couple of years. Um, so at the moment, I have a practice in that I am an art therapist and I see people from a therapeutic point of view. So I work for Cuan Cancer Centre in Cavan, and that's for people who have been affected by cancer in some way. I generally work with children and teenagers, so perhaps they have a parent that's going through the cancer journey, or perhaps they've lost someone in the cancer space, or in some way cancer has touched their lives. And at the moment, I'm engaged in an art, it's called the Art for Life project. And that's where we're taking a look at the legacy work. But that's actually an arts and health project, and that's with adults. So sometimes I work in settings, but depending on who I'm working with, I have a different hat. Um, Now, in relation to describing my practice to you this morning, I've used just images, and I'm going to share with you examples of projects that I was involved in. So I think nature very much shapes my practice. I love the outdoors, I love fresh air, and that's definitely had an impact on how I see the world. And photography would have been a big part of certainly my facilitation days and my early days in the arts. And during the pandemic, that was similar. So during the pandemic, myself and another artist who is a poet and visual artist, Heather Brett, we took part in a Fuin Spare project. That was a national project through the Arts Council in Ireland, whereby they wanted people to engage with their environments. And it was that sort of return into the space after the pandemic. Now, at the time, there were still some restrictions. So we worked with other artists and in some cases, communities online. And then we had a projection. The culmination of all our work was video work that was projected onto the gable walls at the Egg Market in Cavan Town. And then that image of mine is like a hare. It was very much for me at the time a sense of spring. So I included, it was an image of it's an overlay of a drawing and a photo, but that actually was part of the animation. So I suppose definitely a big part of my work. And the word that stood out for me today when I was thinking about this presentation was collaboration. Say, for example, with this project, which was called Portals of Wellbeing, it was thinking about how can we step into that space. Samaya used the word that liminal space. So a portal is like a doorway or a way through. So how can we access our well-being using the arts? So as a group of artists, we all created a short animation and then they were all put together and projected and shared with the public. A big part of my work is collaboration and co-creation. And so this is the Sullivan Centre in Cavan. And I feel a big part of successful work for me is the relationships that are built when we work in a setting. So this is the Sullivan Centre, and previously I had worked with this with people in the Sullivan Centre. So it's a dementia care setting, and I worked there in relation to making memory boxes and just engaging around, again, their life story. Um, and that went really, really well. And then following that, there was another opportunity to apply for funding and build on that. And this project was called Our Shared Rituals. So in this case, I worked as the art therapist and I listened to the stories of the residents. And then we took themes. And then I worked, the lady standing to my right on the screen is called Colette Carney, who's a really brilliant mural artist. And we used images from the residents' memories. So they talked about the dance halls, maybe where they met. The bike that you can see on the bottom right, one of the ladies used to talk a lot about cycling to see her friends, and she would look for her bike. She would also look for her car. And then there's a harmonica on the bottom of the screen, and one of the residents he played the harmonica for me, and he used to sing also. And then that the mural space was really important, obviously, in the outdoors. There's just two images there that I've shared from that collaborative project. And again, that relationship was really important. And Maya was a great advocate. She's the manager of the centre, and she would often like link in and look for projects, artist project, because she felt that the creative work was having a positive impact on the lives of the people within the space. So I mentioned the Arts and Health Forum, and previously in a youth project, we had been encouraged to buy some AR VR headsets, um, and think about how they might support our work or our projects. So while we didn't at the time end up having the opportunity to work with young people in relation to the headsets, the relationships that had already been built in the Sullivan Centre meant that we could think about an idea, and that notion of how do we capture memory and share it in a way perhaps that other people would have I suppose, the opportunity to think about what might it be like to be someone who's having experiences of dementia. So this was a really interesting project in that, again, for me, the word is collaboration. So once again, I went to work with the people in the space around their memories. And it was about the staff. It was also about the families. Because if we were going to make an AR VR film, it was really important that we would, again, that the participant, it was based on the experiences of the participants. And again, ethics is really important. So what was the benefit of working through AR and VR? So through AR and VR, it was about maybe the centre staff or the families having a sense of what is it like to be in someone else's world. The centre residents, I showed them the headsets, and I thought maybe one or two of them might like to engage with the headset in some way, but it wasn't for them. So I explained what we were going to do. And in terms of what kind of understanding, so one lady, for example, was very early in her journey in dementia. And so she loved to read. So we thought, I wonder, would she like to try reading books on the AR/VR headset? Like there's a program. So we showed her the headset, but no, it wasn't an experience that she would like. And indeed, the AR/VR headsets can be challenging even for anyone, you know. Um, but what we did do was we very much honoured their memories or their experiences. So Cavan Monaghan, this area, County Cavan, they talk about Cavan Monaghan. Cavan certainly is the area of the lakes. We have 365 lakes. And then Cavan Monaghan is the area of lakes and drumlins. So a drumlin like is a hill or a like it's not mountainous, but it's something like that. So in terms of the residents and what they shared really personal stories, but a lot of them talked about maybe coming from a farming background, maybe milking cows. They remember milking cows by hand. Um, Maybe they remembered baking bread with their mother, or so in terms of the narrative or creating a narrative for this film, I used their words. So the film was a short film. It was an 8-minute film. Um, and the sets were like an old country kitchen. There was the farm, there was the lake, and going out on the boat. One of the ladies used to talk about swimming in the lake and also going out on the boat. Um, and then we didn't want to shy away from sometimes the difficult part of dementia. So the frustration. So we had a banging door sort of to symbolize what that frustration might be like. And then one of the ladies used to, every week she would tell me about when she met her husband. And I would get a little bit of this, get a little bit more of the story. And so she met him in a shop, and we filmed in one of the old style shops. So it's a place where you have the shop on the front and then the pub is in the back. So in a way we were also capturing like the old Ireland, some of these settings that are still left. So here in the picture, Camille Donegan she's our forerunner really in Ireland. If you speak to anyone in relation to ARNV, or they'll know Camille. Um, so when we shared the film in Cavan Town, we had the headsets, and so it cast to a large screen. And then we have our actors. We had 2 child actors. Um, and then we also had music the music was specially commissioned for the piece as well. And then you'll see we had the headsets. So we had the main screen, and then the headsets were there available at the end where people could literally have that experience of stepping into the space. And in terms of the how, so if I go back, I'm going to go back 2 slides to show you the collaboration. So there was myself, and I functioned as the art therapist in the space, but also the writer director, because I put together the narrative based on the residents' memories. Obviously, there wasn't identifying material. It was a narrative that was respectful of the people there. And then Sean Burns and Camille were our VR specialists. Jennifer Shortall was the production. And then we had Dave Grant and Raquel Montero Calero. They were our audio support. And then Martin, who you just seen there, Martin Donoghue and Fintan McManus, they wrote the music for the actual film. So I shared that project this morning because I thought it's a really good example of how when relationships are built, how maybe potentially quite challenging projects can come together, and you can have an outcome that's really Um, it's special. I felt privileged to work with the people that I did in that project, the residents in the Sullivan Centre, and also for their families and the staff. So we had a full house in the town hall that night, and there was some lovely feedback from the families and from the staff, and two of the residents were able to attend as well, which is great. Um, so they were able to move out of their space and attend. Um, so in terms of health settings in general, I know myself and Alicia presented on Chime at the Vienna kickoff meeting. So if I was to reflect on working in health settings. So I would say in terms of the Sullivan Centre, us having a really good relationship with the centre manager and with everyone involved was a huge part of that. In previous work, so say for example, when we would have been working, we worked with CAMS, which is the Child and Adolescent Mental Health. Um, and so we had to be really considered in how we would all work together. And there was a lot of discussion. So in a previous project, there was myself and three artists. I functioned as the art therapist, um, and the three artists had their three art forms. And we were looking at supporting the young people to identify and manage their emotions. But I suppose over the course of that project, we answered difficult questions. I would say our biggest challenge was around finding a shared language. And so that leads me into Chime, because in that project, we worked with Mental Health Ireland also, and Mental Health Ireland are a huge player in the recovery space. And so the recovery principles ended up being one of the foundation stones for that project. So we used Chime as a theme for the project. So connectedness, and I know Samaya, you spoke a lot about connection, and that's something I truly believe, that we have to have a connection with the people that we work with and a connection to the art. So we have connectedness, we've hope and optimism, identity, meaning, and empowerment. And so the artists and the young people worked together using that particular framework. So I brought that up this morning because I think sometimes it's also about our roles. If I was to reflect on the previous items that I shared, it would be around, or where I sometimes need to step back and think, it's around who am I, what is my role in this project, and what are my responsibilities, maybe. And so shared language was one of them. At the moment, I did briefly mention what I'm currently working on. It is the Art of Life project. That's my current piece of work at the moment, and also working with Alicia in relation to the culture and health. And I think that probably brings me to the end of my presentation. So
Great, thank you so much. I previously engaged with Kim about these chime principles. So just to reiterate what she was saying, if I understand correctly, this is the chime is developed by a mental health specialist. It's a apparently well-known framework in the recovery phase of getting out of mental health conditions or issues. And why it is useful is that the artist understands it, and also the mental health specialist understands it. So it's the connect, hope and optimism, identity, meaning and empowerment. All of these words mean something also for the artist. But if you could expand on this as well a little bit.
Sure. So the background to Chime actually is that it started off in research. So Limi at all. It's from 2011. They wanted to discover people in recovery. What what are the factors that are most helpful in relation to recovery? And so people in recovery and people with lived experience of mental health challenges identified these five things. So connectedness or connection, hope and optimism, identity, like thinking about who am I in terms of my recovery journey, and then meaning, the meaning that I attribute to my experiences. So who was I before perhaps my mental health challenge? Who am I now? Or even in terms of my experience, what happens for me today? What am I making that experience mean? And then the E for empowerment. How do I stand into my own power in relation to my recovery journey? Or what helps me feel good about myself? What helps me feel empowered or feel strong? Um, and so in terms of how we would have used chime, the artists were able to use it as a theme and actually bring the recovery principles to life, but also within the medical space. Um, we had a shared language because of this research and it being an evidence-based approach. Within medical settings, they knew what we were talking about because uh, in the recovery movement, people would refer quite a lot to the recovery principles. So we found it a helpful way to work, because it wasn't that we were coming in to a space and saying, oh, we're doing something completely different to what you usually do. We were working within an accepted framework, but also people can respond quite individually to that framework as well. Like you have we all have our own way of looking at those words and what they mean to us. Um,
Meanwhile, thank you so much for that. Meanwhile, we received a question from Cami in the chat.
okay.
Um, she says, what would you both like to see happen, develop within the art, culture, and health sphere to encourage wider engagement, implementation both in and outside of healthcare settings? So, what should happen basically in order to to make this feel bigger, I think?
Yeah, so the word that pops up for me is around value. Um, so even in terms of how we value our work or how it's seen or how it's valued. And that again, that thing of maybe having your champions and your advocates and collaboration. So supporting each other is a huge thing. Um, Value in our work, value in the people involved, but also getting a sense that the work itself is valued. I know that's a very broad way, perhaps, of responding to that question. Um, so, say, for example, in Ireland at the moment, the there is a scheme that has been extended by it's where an artist receives a stipend just to be an artist. It's a bit like a basic wage, but a certain amount of artists would have had to apply for that. But I mean, that was pretty revolutionary. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago that started. But it meant that actually someone put a value on making art and on artists, uh, which I think was helpful because sometimes it's a risky practice. It can be a risky practice to stand up there and say I am an artist. In terms of a profession, sometimes I'm not saying we need to professionalize the arts, but we need to value them. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I completely agree. Um, what I would like to see is, at least in Finland, I would like to see structures uh, in the system for this, because at the moment everybody is working with grants. So you have a project here and there, but nothing really stays. So I wish that the hospitals would actually hire artists to work there part-time, for example. That's what I meant when I said that it's important to have like longer uh, longer term contracts than just one project here and there. I think this would be a great development, and we have collaboration is very important. So I'm part of one community who is trying to um, uh, make this happen in some level. Um, yeah, this is a new field and it needs a lot of explaining what we're doing, and what you said about research and evidence-based talk is important, but I also think that building up structures is also equally important, because we have a lot of knowledge and we have a lot of we know a lot that how art is good for you and how music helps, but we need the actual structures and ways to have it inside the system.
Yeah, and actually, we should not forget that Finland and also Ireland is quite in the forefront. Although you probably feel that you are still so much to do, but there are really countries where who, for example, where this awareness is not there at all, and indeed. I myself often say you have to talk to the same person 5 times about this in order to first to get it, and then thereafter you can. There are some people who get it very fast. Usually they do some kind of an art as well. Um, but definitely, I totally agree with you, SAARAMAIJA, with regarding the structures, and this is also the reason, and this is of course one of the Culture for Health recommendations as well, but it's one of the reasons we started the Culture and Health platform, and also why we, for example, in the project application, kind of ask the artist to already bring a letter of intent of an organization from the health side or the social side, because if they sign that letter, at least there is a first step of maybe taking over. Of course, we can't produce that this is also a project that you are going to implement, but the idea is also to try to work with the hospital in a way that maybe a part-time engagement would be possible for the artist. It's kind of a little bit showing what you can do, and then thereafter, hopefully, they will like it. And also on EU level, we are very much trying to support this through EU member states working in the area of culture and health on a report that kind of tries to outline how to work together in the two sectors. So it will be a long, long journey, but at least there is a start and there
Yeah.
is movement towards it. So it's hopeful, no?
And I think as an artist, it's important to talk about your work and really like uh, tell people what you are doing actually, and what's the impact is, and how you enjoy it, and yeah, just spread the good word.
Yeah. I wonder if there are some other. Oh, I see there is a new. Okay. Cami just thanked for that. Thank you so much. Um, I wonder if we can go again back a little bit about this holding space of what exactly do you mean, both of you mean, because you really understood each other. So, okay, can you expand a little bit what holding space means for you, or how to do it?
Should I go first?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you go ahead.
Well, it means so many things, I think. It's a combination of so many things. Um, First of all, like every day is different, and like all the partici participating people are different. But I think if I would think what holding space means in short, It's about staying alert and reactive and in connection. And for example, if I go to a care home and I go to a resident's room and I do an individual session with them, I check how they are, if they are awake, what they might like today. I might try out some stuff, and then I would listen if the person likes it or not, and if they don't like it, I change my way of doing. If they do like it, I maybe keep going into that direction. Um, and then, in order for me to do that, I need to be well rested. I need to be interested in the thing I do. If I go there every day, every week, I get bored. It's not interesting for me anymore. So, uh, like many things. Yeah. Did this
Yeah.
reply to your question?
Yeah, so I agree. I would resonate a lot with that. Um, I suppose I've two there's sort of two things I think about. There's the holding space when you're present, and then there's the step before that is this notion
Mm,
of establishing safe space. So that's like the homework you do with the setting
yeah.
before you get there. Like all the knowledge you're trying to find out about the people who were there or the staff or the place or how that might go. And then again, the preparation, you named it as well, the preparation in yourself so that you're going to be available. So for me, if I've gone for a walk or got fresh air at least, or and then preparing my kit bag, let's say, what materials am I going to bring? But the holding space is very much about being present with the person. Like you're very much tuning into what's going on for them in the moment. And then how what you're bringing or offering from the artist's point of view, how they're receiving it. And oftentimes you're reading the room, you're reading what's happening for them, and maybe you might make a change or you think, I'm not going to try that today because I don't think that's for them today. Maybe we can try that another time. But it's like the deep listening. You spoke about the deep listening, Sarah Maya. I
Hmm.
would say the holding space is very much about being present and listening and yeah, before even maybe the art even happens. Um, that's kind of how I think about it.
Usually in these times, we often go to breakout rooms, but because we are not so many, we don't do it. But I was wondering, and I'm asking now the participants, that we could nevertheless stop the recording, and usually we introduce ourselves in these breakout rooms. So if some of you would be open to come forward and let know what you are doing, maybe we can now stop the recording.